And if you'll welcome one more time Chris Shomenta as he makes our kickoff for our opening ceremonies of Relay for Life Olmsted County.
Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone here, the organizers and volunteers who have put together a great event to raise money for our cause. We appreciate it. This is the 20th year Olmsted County has done a relay, and it's the 100th year of the American Cancer Society. And that got me to thinking, if I had been diagnosed 100 years ago, I probably would have lived about a week after my diagnosis. If I had been diagnosed about 20 years ago, I probably would not have lived a year past my diagnosis. And I'm kicking pretty good at 2.5 years right now. So I'm happy with that. The advances made in cancer treatment and research that are funded by the American Cancer Society make a real difference in lives like mine. The work that they do with the caregivers, support groups, with the places like the Hope Lodge and the cancer education programs make a great difference in the caregivers and the family and the friends of us cancer patients. And we appreciate that a great deal. Generally, this isn't a journey you go on alone. My journey started in November of 2010, right after Thanksgiving. I had some abdominal discomfort that I had sort of figured was an appendix that was acting up, maybe gallstones or kidney stones or something like that. I didn't think it was anything terribly serious. So I stuck it out through Thanksgiving weekend and went in to see my primary care doctor on Monday. She admonished me that I should have gone into the hospital because everything she can think of that would cause pain like that will get diagnosed and treated in a hospital anyway. So she set up a CT scan for me later that day. I went in, did the scan, went back home, and got a call that I'll never forget at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She said the pain was caused by a tumor closing off my intestine, my large intestine, and that they had seen what looked like other tumors in lymph nodes and the liver. Well, I called my wife at work, another call that neither of us are going to forget, and told her my story. And we met down at St. Mary's where I was admitted. The next week was a blur of consultations and tests and more tests and consultations. The GI docs who took care of me did the colonoscopy without a traditional prep work, which wasn't pretty. And actually, I had turned 50 that year and had a colonoscopy scheduled for later that week. I had bought the prep and everything else. I just was admitted a little bit before I got a chance to do that. So it would have been caught that week anyway, just not the way I wanted it to. At any rate, they biopsied my liver, confirmed that I did have stage 4 colon cancer. They gave me a port. I met my oncology team, and things were off and running. I was ready for chemo. During this part of the journey, we get a lot of education. The American Cancer Society helps with some of that. My concierge and wife, Julia, did a fantastic job of doing research, finding things out, and educating me. She still does that. It never stops with her, and I'm eternally grateful. My mother also called during that week. I was in a waiting room in the Mayo building, and I think she wanted to know that I properly understood my prognosis. She said, "You know, kid, stage 4, that's as bad as it gets." Those of you who know me now know where I got my sense of humor and what I had to perfect it from. My first chemo cocktail was called Folfox, and it involved a drug called 5-FU. Now that's delivered in a little fanny pack through a pump that went into my port for 46 hours. It was 2 long, very low energy days. Now, about 1 to 2% of people who get the drug 5-FU will have some heart palpitations or irregular heart rhythms. About 1% of those people with some type of cardiac problem will have a full-on cardiac arrest. What can I say? It happened the day after Christmas, 2010. I had just finished my second chemo. The pump had been removed a little bit before, and I took the dogs out for a walk. And my mother-in-law, my stepdaughter, youngest stepdaughter, and my mother were making homemade cinnamon rolls and stuff for the holidays in the kitchen. And they made some type of comment that they expected some smart aleck response from me, and it didn't come. They turned and looked, and I was unresponsive on the couch. My younger stepdaughter thought quickly and ran downstairs and got my older stepdaughter, who was in her final year of nursing at Bemidji State, visiting for Christmas. And she administered CPR, the compression-only type CPR, for about 7 or 8 minutes before the first responders got there with a portable defibrillator. They shocked me about 6 or 7 times there, another 4 or 5 times in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and then another 4 or 5 times, I think, in the hospital before I finally stabilized and got a heartbeat that kept going. Now, I've heard about near-death experiences. You're supposed to meet old relatives and family pets and whatever that tell you to go back, it's not your time yet. I don't remember any of that. I got chipped out there. I don't remember Christmas. I don't remember the Christmas dinner we had. I don't remember taking the dogs for a walk, and I don't remember the whole week after that when I was in the hospital. But any cardiac arrest that you can tell somebody about later beats the odds on what was supposed to happen. That's for sure. So they gave me a different set of chemo drugs now, which I was happy about. The 5-FU, they did a scan and it had been quite effective. Fortunately, the new set of chemo drugs I was on was also quite effective. I continued to see tumors shrink until I got to a point where I was eligible for surgery, or we at least started talking about it. The surgeon didn't want to do surgery because he knew he could not remove everything in my liver, and thought that during the time I would be recovering off chemo, things would just start growing again and I wouldn't have actually gained any ground. But the doctors at Mayo who do a procedure called radiofrequency ablation that burns away cells sort of convinced him that between the two of them they could get the whole thing. And they did. They did surgery that removed the tumor around my colon, and they had to put a stent in to open it up so that I could still eat and function. So they removed that. They removed what they could out of the lymph nodes, and of the 19 tumors that were in my liver, they were able to resect surgically 6 of them and burn away with ablation the other 13. That gave me 6 months of no evidence of disease where I didn't have to do chemo for a while, until things started to grow back in my liver, and that brought me back into chemo, which is where I am now. So now I have chemo every other week. I just had some last week. I get scanned every 2 months, and that happens on Thursday of next week. When I go up for chemo, I generally work there. I bring my computer because the PTO has too much potential to be spent sitting in the Gonda building. There's so many better things to do with it. And while I'm here, I mentioned the Gonda building, I have to mention the nurses, the volunteers, and the people that designed the whole atmosphere of chemotherapy treatment for patients did a fantastic job there. They are second to none, and they deserve a big round of applause. So, we go in, we talk to the doctor, we get scan results, we plan chemo breaks as I need them, and we look at managing side effects. And for me, the side effects are really quite manageable, and I'm very lucky there. I know there are a lot of patients where chemo just kicks them down so hard that it interferes with anything else in life. As I said, I can have chemo and go to work the next day, and that's really pretty rare. All of my family, especially Julia and the kids, help me manage in so many ways, and they're the reason you keep going through this fight. So from here, the future is not really all that plannable for me. I don't know what's going to happen. I know what the most likely outcomes are, and the most likely outcome right now looks a lot better than it did before I had surgery, and that was a lot better than it was when I had a cardiac arrest. So I have no reason not to believe that the most likely outcome will continue to look better as I go down the road. Sorry, Robin. I went to school to become a mathematician, and I found that in the cancer patient business, there are so many numbers that you have to look at. What's your 5-year survival rate? What are your blood counts like? What are your tumor markers like? Is this treatment more effective than that treatment? You guys bring another number into this game, and that's dollars. Dollars for cancer research, dollars for education and study, dollars for caregiver and patient support, and all of that makes a fantastic difference to our lives, and we thank you very much.
I tell you, if optimism has anything to do with it, he is going to be cured in no time. Chris, thank you so much. Such a moving and touching and entertaining speech.